Hey guys, I'm so happy that you're part of this masterclass on understanding your child's behavior. And more importantly, understanding that your child's behavior is typically a neurological issue versus a behavioral issue to begin with. And my name is Dr. Evan Shea. I'm the owner and co-founder of Kinetic Rehab and Spine. And I'm very excited to share with you the principles and concepts on how we could actually rehab your child when assessing the proper things. And why I got started into really taking a deep dive into pediatric rehab was because of my son. My son was born, and many of you guys could relate to this, I'm sure. My son was born premature. We had twins. One passed away. The other one, my son, was in the NICU for 4 months. And he was intubated. He was on a ventilator for about 4 months, and then his lungs slowly started to develop. Now, in the meantime, because my son was born so prematurely, he never followed through some of the neurodevelopmental progress that he should have had. So he skipped over specific milestones. And those milestones led him to having not only just a weak immune system, but also the fact that with his brain not fully developed. So before the age of 3 years old, the right brain develops at a different rate than the left brain. And because he missed specific milestones, his left and right brain were not communicating very well. So he had some issues in school, some behavioral issues. He was often clumsy. He didn't really listen very well in school, etc. And at home. I'm sure many of you guys, if you're watching this, you could totally relate to what I had to deal with. Now, after spending about $2,000 to $3,000 a month for almost 7 years of my son's life, the first 7 years, and going to PT, OT, speech therapy, tutors after school, OT, PT, speech in the school systems, they failed. And I was very, very upset. And it got to the point where I got very frustrated because my son was still having the same issues. And the schools kept on saying the same things. And he still had the same behavior and the same weakened immune system. And it got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I've treated 700,000 patients in my clinic, and I'm like, let me figure this out. And so I went down the rabbit hole of finding the best functional neurological pediatric rehab specialists on the planet, and I just took a deep dive studying them, and I still study with them. And the first thing I came across was something known as primitive reflexes. And I knew in physical therapy school that those reflexes should be gone at a certain age, and I assumed that they're gone, and I assumed that they would just stay gone. And so when I initially assessed my child, there's 4 primary reflexes, then 4 additional reflexes. So there's 8 total reflexes I checked on him. And the first day I checked on him, he had 7 out of the 8 reflexes that were still there. Now, every single one of these reflexes should have been gone by the time he was 1 year old. And so then I got really frustrated again. I'm like, all right, now how do I figure this out? What are the best strategies, best tools? And so I started finding technology. And I'll share some of the technology because the technology plus proper movement, it got my son back very quickly. And within a week, I was able to see a significant change in the reflexes. So 7 of those 8 reflexes that were still there were now gone a week, possibly a week, maybe a week and a half later. However, I expected things to happen quickly. I expected his behavior to shift immediately, but that's not how the brain works. Because there's something known as neuroplasticity, and nerves that are wired together fire together. So his brain created a habit of the old behavior, even though the reflexes are now normalized. So what I'm seeing now, months later, is now I'm starting to see, now that the reflexes are integrated, my son's starting to progress in school, and it's really getting exciting for him. He's starting to love math and understand math and really get things. He's becoming much more coordinated. He actually likes to exercise now. So we have a routine where he picks out his own exercises every single day, in fact, every single morning. And it's just a beautiful thing to see how he's developing. He actually also put on, I think, about 8 pounds in the past 4 or 5 months since we really took a deep dive into really understanding how the brain works. And if you have a child that has a chronic immune issue, typically that's a right brain that's underactive and the left brain is overactive. And that's what my son, that's what he had. And most of the kids that do have hyperactivity, clumsiness, they lose focus easily. That's typically a right brain that's suppressed compared to left brain. And that could just be a simple milestone that was missed. It might be the fact that he wasn't breastfed or she wasn't breastfed, or a child missed crawling like my son did, or they missed rolling. So if you look at neurodevelopmentally, we should start on our back and then we should roll to our side. We should roll on the side and then lie on our belly. Belly, look up. That's how the neck extensors. That's how we build postural muscles. Then from there, the child rocks back onto all fours. Then the child starts crawling. And then after the child starts crawling, the child goes on to what's known as half kneeling. Then from half kneeling to standing. So if we miss any of those milestones, and standing to walking, obviously, but if we miss any of those milestones, it's going to affect the child a lot. And what's sad right now, I was talking to a pediatrician, and she was saying that right now the American Medical Association is saying that crawling is not important. But from a functional and neurological perspective, it is absolutely critical, because there are 2 or 3 reflexes that get integrated once we start rolling. And those reflexes could affect the ability for the eyes to track, which means that your child can't read, or they're clumsy. And so these reflexes become pivotal. And so I'm so happy to be able to share this information with you, because it gives a lot of parents hope. I know for my wife and I, it has given us so much hope. And because now we really see our child, and we always got frustrated with his behavioral issues. But once we understood that his behavior was actually a neurological issue, and it was his way of collaborating his nervous system, right? So he became fidgety, he moved around a lot, but that's how his brain and his nervous system, they needed to move. And so one thing that we found was that we became more patient with our child, just understanding that's his coping mechanism in his brain and nervous system. So remember, if anything, with this presentation, just remember what your child is going through is his coping mechanism. That's how his nervous system needs to behave in order for it to self-correct or auto-correct. And it's not him, it's his nervous system. And it can be fixed, and it can be helped, and there is hope for you, okay? Whether it's with me or somebody else, it doesn't matter. But what I found is that when we stack specific technology up with specific movement patterns, that's when the child responds very, very, very quickly, much faster than any other treatment process that I've ever came across. And we've tried many of them, from acupuncture to nutrition therapy to OT/PT at 3 to 4 different locations. I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of dollars per year over the past 6-7 years I've spent for rehabbing my child. And you're probably spending the same amount of money now too as well, because school systems, they can only give you so much. And most of the rehab that's out there, they do, when I start teaching about the 4 phases of neurodevelopment, the last phase is the cognitive phase, but that's where they typically start children. They're missing the 3 phases that build the brain. Okay, so I just want to give you a heads up on that. So let's go into the presentation. They'll show you some technologies. That sound good? All right, go. Unwired. Now, the reason why I came up with the title Unwired is because think about a disconnection between neurons, or disconnection between electrical circuits. Right now, our children, they're unwired. Their nervous systems are not linked up very well. Why your child can't sit still, focus, or learn. Now, it's important. There's a course that I'm creating, and it'll probably be done by the time you see this. It's called Rewired. It's a home study course where you could test your kids, assess their primitive reflexes, and there's corrective exercises built into this course, so you can self-treat your child at home. So if you live in another country or another state and you can't come to see me personally, this course is meant for you. It's also meant for patients that are seeing me actively. Now they have a deeper understanding. I love that saying, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man a fish, he eats for a lifetime. So I want each one of my parents and their kids, I want you guys to know how to fish. I want you to be able to understand that if we assess for this, we give these simple exercises. It's not that complicated, but we need the right assessment tool and technology on top of that. Because each child, the children need 3 things. They need proper stimulus, they need ATP, which is energy, and they need oxygen. If they're missing any of those 3, then the child's not going to progress as quickly as possible. Okay? And those are the 3 things that were missing. They were giving stimulus to my child, but not oxygen and not ATP or energy. All right, the missing piece. This goes beyond discipline. Um, have you been told your child just needs more discipline or medication or focus or not? It's not bad behavior. This isn't laziness or just ADHD. It's a brain body disconnect caused by primitive reflexes. Finding solutions. Discover what primitive reflexes are, how they affect your child, and how to overcome these challenges. Now, what are primitive reflexes? They're automatic movement patterns. Primitive reflexes are automatic movements babies are born with, like the startle or sucking reflex. So if you ever held a baby or were holding your baby and you put your fingers out like this and they grab your fingers and they hold on, right? That's called a Palmer reflex. Or you put something near their face and the mouth turns, right? That's called the rooting reflex. There's another reflex where they hear something and they turn their head, their eyes move, right? That's the vestibular ocular reflex. These are all reflexes that the child develops, and they all should be gone by the time the child is 12 months old. Should turn off. These reflexes should naturally deactivate as the child develops. So as the brain develops, these reflexes should be turned off. They should be inhibited. But for more kids, they don't. And we see that more and more and more in today's day and age. And these reflexes, if they block human development, they block neurological development, they block brain development. And so these children will typically they're a little bit delayed in school. They might not add or do math properly. They may flip letters like B's and D's. They may not read or track properly, or they just can't sit still. Now here's the shaky foundation. These are the 4 phases or the 4 levels of what we call care in our practice now. Now, the foundation to everything is the primitive reflexes. We got to lay the right foundation. So like building a house, right? If I built a foundation to a home, the strength is built on the foundation. Its strength is built on the concrete, right? It's not built on the wood above it. Because if I had wood below wood or foam below wood, the house is going to crumble, all right? So a lot of these kids, they're missing these milestones. Like my son, he missed crawling. He missed because he was not breastfed. He missed the rooting reflex. There's a snout reflex too. So these are all reflexes that are missed when children are not breastfed or they missed crawling or even creeping. It's really important, these milestones. Now the next phase up. So once the primitive reflexes, they're formed and are formed pretty much in the brainstem, the next layer is called the vestibular system. And this is the system inside our ears. And the vestibular system is the bridge between the eyes, which is the ocular system, and the primitive reflexes. So it's really important that these are the kids that have difficulty sitting still. They always need to move. They always need to run around. They'd be labeled as the attention deficit disorder kid, right? They need to move. And that's because they need feedback and information to the vestibular system. And then the next level up is the ocular system, the eyes. The visual system is very important in reading. It's also very important in tracking. So if your child has difficulty catching a ball or doesn't like playing sports, it might just be the fact that their eyes are not tracking very well. However, the eyes are linked to the primitive reflexes. So there's a reflex called the ATNR reflex. If this reflex is not fully integrated because a child missed crawling, i.e. my child, he was positive with this, then the eyes can't track very well. And I was noticing that with my son with sports. He didn't like playing ball sports because he just could not track his eyes. And so you'll see that possibly with your children too. And the last phase is cognition. So think about the brain develops from the lower part of the brain to the upper part. So it goes low to higher parts of the brain. So that big meaty part here that you'll see on all the anatomy pictures, right? That's called the frontal lobe. And that brain develops later. It develops as we age and as we mature. I think about it. A baby, there's only 3 or 4 things that they want. They want to sleep, they want to poop, they want to eat, right? So if they get those 3 things, that's why they're called primitive reflexes. They're primitive in nature. That's all the brain wants as an infant. But as the baby starts developing, then they want to move more, then they want to see more, because the babies can't see much. They have blurry vision for the first 6 to 12 months. It's a different world. They're sensing and hearing and feeling more than anything else. And I talked about this a little bit earlier. The right and left brain, they develop at different levels, or different rates, I should say. The right brain develops first. The first 3 years of your life, the right brain develops. And the primitive reflexes are fully integrated into the right brain. So if we miss milestones like crawling or scooting or breastfeeding, the right brain doesn't fully develop. So then the left brain starts taking over. Now, if you ever study brain anatomy, the left brain is more analytical, it's more logical, the right brain is more spatially aware. It's more like socially aware, like understanding people's feelings or emotions. That's what the right brain does. And people that have a lot of left brain dominance, like kids with autism or they're on the spectrum, they can't feel other kids' emotions. So they say things they don't really mean. It's just there's an imbalance between the left and right brain. And so what we do is we need to first assess the primitive reflexes and then retrain the brain and create a balance between the left and right brain. Hopefully you guys understand that. So this is really important. And where my son started with his PT, OT, and speech, everything was with cognition. They started at the top level. I found one clinic that did primitive reflexes, but they were missing pieces. They weren't using technology to increase ATP and energy production and oxygen to the area. Like, for example, what we do in our clinics is we use lasers. I don't know if you can say that. We use laser therapy. So that's one technology to increase ATP and energy. So I could put the laser on different parts of the brain. Typically be the right side 80% of the time. It's going to be the right frontal lobe that's underactive, but I could put a laser on those areas. The left cerebellum, while the child is stimulating those reflexes, like through exercise and through movement. Another technology we use a lot is glasses. Now, if you take a look at these glasses, blue glasses access the right brain. Red glasses access blue glasses access the right brain. You see the lights are going off, right? So it's going off in the left corner of my eye, which is accessing the visual fields on my right side. Red glasses do just the opposite. They access the left brain. And so it's very important that we use technology, but we need to assess properly first. Here's another technology that we use. This is very calming to a child. It's called a vagal nerve stimulator. And we put this inside the ear of the child. And they could use this at night. So when they're home at night when you're watching TV, you just put the vagal nerve stimulator on them. On the left ear for the right brain. Left ear for the right brain. I'm looking at the camera, so it's flipping me around. And then on the right ear to the left brain. So it's very important that we know where to put these, but this works extremely well in calming your child and getting them ready for sleep. And then we have technology like a pulsed electromagnetic field device. So with this, I would put a headband around them, and I would have one electrode here, the other one back here. And what this does, it's a PEMF device, a pulse electromagnetic field device. And what this does, it increases energy and oxygen to the area that the electrodes are on. It's not an electrical stimulation device. It's totally different. And we have a bunch of other technology as well, but I just wanted to share that with you. Now, a couple of symptoms that children have this imbalance between the left and right brain, or they're unwired, right? Constant movement. They're zoning out. Their redirection is needed, so they lose focus, and you got to bring them back. Movements and body control issues like poor balance, unusual balance. They have difficulty riding bikes, or their gross motor skills are underdeveloped. Right? They try to play sports and they trip over their own 2 feet. Right? They have poor hand-eye coordination. A ball comes at them and they get scared, or they might be afraid of loud sounds. I mean, these all add up in the nervous system. Emotional regulation issues like meltdowns, frequent meltdowns, emotional outbursts. Like they say negative things about themselves, which can be very frustrating as a parent, I'm sure. They have anxiety, and you wonder, are 7-year-olds supposed to be like this? Are 4-year-olds supposed to be like this? Like you start questioning, I don't remember being like this, right? Or my older son, Johnny, doesn't do this, right? But this is because these children miss milestones. It's not their behavior, it's the missed milestone. So then we'd have to go back in and reprogram the brain and nervous system. And that's how we reset the brain. And what's great about children, their brain is easy to be rewired because there's easy neuroplasticity in a young brain. And so they respond very, very quickly. Like we could see most of these reflexes be gone in in just a matter of weeks versus traditional methods. My son was in OT for years, 6 years, almost 7 years. They have sensory overreactions, so to like sounds, they respond very hypersensitivity to. Learning and school difficulties, letter reversals, confusing the B's and the D's, the P's and the Q's, or similar letters and numbers, persistent beyond early learning. So they should have proper integration of that's a B and that's a D, right? And as we age, we should be able to evolve into that, understand that these kids have difficulty with that. Handwriting rather, poor pencil gripping, which actually could be a couple of different reflexes. One is called the palmar grasp reflex. The other one is actually the 18R reflex again. The eyes play a huge role in handwriting and the mouth. So it's very important because the kids need to be able to feed themselves. Reading struggles, again, the eyes, and then visual tracking. Sensory behavioral issues. The behaviors aren't random. These are clues. Like my son would just randomly start yelling, and you're like, "What are you doing?" And then he just randomly start running around the house. His body knows. Like when he's in school, he knows when he needs to take a break. He needs to stand up and move. And the school systems, they do the best they can, but they don't understand our children. And my child needs to move, needs to get up and go. He needs to have often breaks. And once we understand that, it's not a behavioral issue, it's a neurological issue, then we can love our child easier. We don't get frustrated as often rather. Now, this is a very common one, sleep disruptions. We had a lot of sleep issues with my child early on. They had a hard time falling asleep, fearful of sleeping, nightmares, staying asleep, and sometimes they wake up cranky in the morning. Neurological connection. And so think about the primitive reflexes are about pure survival. We need to eat, we need to poop, we need to and we need to feed, right? Those are primitive primal reflexes. And so the next development, if there's any kind of developmental gaps, this creates a missing connection between the brain and the behavioral issues. So behavior is the last thing to show up. So if the primitive reflexes aren't integrated, there's going to be developmental gaps, which create behavioral issues. So there's a Chinese proverb that states, to treat disease, you must treat the root. And the root behind these children is not their behavior itself, but the primitive reflexes, neurologically, that's causing it. All right, so there's 3 root causes behind this. Missed milestones is a big one, and we talked about that. Too much containment, babies spend too much time in swings and walkers, etc. They're not moving as much. Insufficient crawling, rolling, or tummy time to develop them properly. And then movement wires the brain. That's why these kids are hyperactive. They want to run around, they want to move because it rewires the brain and nervous system. So once we started giving my son exercises that are specific for his brain, we gave him exercises with technology, and then we do every day because we need to practice, we need to build strength in these kids every day. So just because you might come to see me for rehab 3 times a week with your child, they need to still do their part at home. And we as parents, we become their coaches and we become their therapist. So my job is to empower you to be able to teach you on how to heal your child long term, because you're not going to be with me for the rest of his life or your life. So my job is to teach you, get the nervous system optimized, and then you guys just continue to build upon that. So movement wires the brain, especially the right brain. And here's a big one as well. Root cause number 2 is toxicity and inflammation. So toxicity, any kind of, if you have mold in the house, that could be a contributing factor. If you have a heavy metal toxin inside the body, that could be a contributing factor. If you have any kind of deficiency as well, like vitamin deficiency, that could play a big role. We do a hair mineral test and we send it out to a lab to be able to assess to see what minerals a child might be deficient in or what heavy metals they might have toxicity to. And then we can make customized programs based off of that using herbs and supplements. I'm also an herbalist, acupuncturist too, and a nutritionist. So we combine everything into our practice to be able to help the child get better. I think it can't just be one thing, it has to be a 360. Because if a child has neuroinflammation due to a heavy metal poison, right? By the way, heavy metals can be passed down transplacentally from mother to baby. It may have happened before even birth. So there's things that we just have to just get out of the body, and that we use all the skill sets we have to be able to help your child. So these toxins could be from processed foods. They cause brain fog, environmental toxins like I talked about, the chemicals and heavy metals. And then it affects the gut health. And in fact, the right brain, when it's underactive, it actually causes leaky gut syndrome in the gut. So the immune system becomes compromised. And so we teach you guys how to handle that and what to do with that as well. And then root cause number 3 is any kind of birth trauma or stress. So any kind of C-sections, fast labors, NICU. My son his mom's water broke at 20 weeks. He had to have a C-section. He was in NICU for 4 months. And I'm sure many of you guys have the same issues going on too, the same challenges. So these stresses at birth, they actually affect the neural development of the child. Any kind of prenatal stress, maybe during the time you're pregnant, a loved one passed, or you moved, or it was during COVID. Whatever that stressor is, the stresses add up in a child as well, not just you. Early childhood stress, trauma or chronic stress keeps the body in a fight or flight response. And then reflex integration is blocked. And reflex integration could be blocked by all 3 of these causes. There's many more, but these are the primary ones that we see in the clinic. And the good news is there are ways to integrate these reflexes. But first we need to assess the reflexes to see which ones are dysfunctional. Then we have to assess the vestibular system, seeing how the balance centers are working. And then we have to also look at the eyes, how well the eyes are tracking, and then create a customized protocol that's built around what the needs are of your child. We need to do sensory work and then neurodevelopmental techniques and teach you, the parent, to be able to heal your child at home. I think that's the most important thing is we did not have the tools in our household. Nobody taught me, nobody guided me. And once I learned it, I wanted to teach others. And so now my mission is to be able to not only help your child, but teach you to be able to assess your child and be able to rehab them at home. Supporting the whole child. So we got to do movement therapy. We need to detox and add nutrients to their diet. We need to regulate the nervous system. And then I need to teach you. That's it. I mean, it's not complicated. And none of this is complicated. Is it easy? No. But it's not complicated. The movements are simple. The technology is simple. But it comes down to the repetition of doing it day in and day out, because you might only see me 30 minutes 3 times a week. And then they have to do their homework at home. All right, and that's going to be really important. That's why we also use virtual reality. And the virtual reality will actually access different parts of the brain. That's one of the most imperative tools that we use that I'm sorry I didn't show you earlier. That's a technology that you'll go home with. There's an app that you'll download on your phone, and you have VR, and your child will be on this technology 3 to 4 times per day just to rehab the brain. And we're seeing real results and transformational stories. Our kids are now calm in the classroom. They're able to do homework easier with less struggle. They're more emotionally balanced, and their learning is progressing very quickly. And there's more family peace because now you can understand what your child's going through. Now, like many children, what you'll find is just because the reflexes are integrated, the behavior changes don't happen immediately. The learning leaps don't happen immediately because we still have to rebuild that right brain that's suppressed and deficient because they missed some specific primitive reflexes at a very young age. Okay, so it's very important for you to understand that just because the reflexes are improved or they're getting better, there's still time for the brain to develop. However, it happens very quickly, but it doesn't happen as quickly as you think. So day one, once I normalized my son's reflexes, I was like, okay, now math is going to start getting better. It wasn't like that. It takes time. And so how we chunk our programs are, we give 1 month on of rehab or care, 1 month off, 1 month on. And we do that for 4 cycles so that over a year, it's 8 months of care. But of those 8 months, 4 months of that is them at home, you guys doing the exercises with him. And then move on to the next phase. So if you just think about stacking like layers of cake, the foundations of primitive reflexes, then you go home for a month and you practice those. And then when you practice those, the brain will develop. And then the next month. So it's a way for you to not only save money, but also to have ownership of and feel empowered to be able to help your child. And in fact, the nervous system responds better to that anyways, because we need time for the brain to integrate. Now, reconnection, not fixing. So it's very important that we understand this. Let me just move this over here. The old paradigm was it's a behavior problem, and that's where we were. It's a behavior issue, right? But the new understanding is this: it's a neurological issue. Lack of discipline. No, actually, it's a brain-body disconnect, specifically between the left and right brain. Old paradigm was medication only, and now we are root cause approach, right? We're going to treat the root. To treat the disease, you must treat the root. We manage symptoms. That was the old paradigm. Now we want to resolve the underlying issues. Again, getting back to the cause. And you're not alone. So it's very important that you understand that there's a lot of parents that are in the same situation you are, that they're looking for solutions. I know I was. And there are parents that need help, and there are kids that need help, more importantly. And it's very important for us to understand as parents that there is help out there, that there is hope, that we could help our own children, and we have the right resources. All right. There's expert guidance. We have a specialized team that will personalize our support for you, and educational resources. And so we have an exercise library. We have home study courses, the Rewired course I think I told you about, to be able to teach you how to assess your child and all the exercises to go with that. We have an anti-inflammatory diet. We have a supplement protocol that we set up for kids if you want to do supplements. There's diet planning, hair and tissue mineral tests. There's a lot of resources, and we have a full team that could be able to support you. Now, the next steps, I would highly suggest coming in for an evaluation. Let's assess your child, and the evaluation's free right now. Over time, the evaluation, we're going to charge for it, but it's a gift I want to give to my community. So I charge $500 an hour. The evaluation is going to be 30 minutes. So it'd be about $250 for that 30-minute time. I'm giving away my time for free. And if you want to continue plan of care with us, that's fine. If I could give you exercises to do at home, that's fine too. Whether you choose to have your child get treated, great. If not, great. At least you know what you're dealing with and how you could actually help your child. There's going to be a click. There's going to be a link below for you to be able to download a free retained reflex symptom checklist. And this checklist will assess the different reflexes, and it's going to be check marks. And I believe it's if you check box 2 or more, your child most likely has those reflexes that are retained and they didn't fully integrate. So it'd be really important for you guys to fill it out. And then we have a parent empowerment group that we started on Facebook. We'd love for you to gain access to that as well, so you guys could share your stories and we could just build hope for each other. And again, hope. Begin your child's journey of thriving with our guidance. We love to serve kids. I mean, that's what's so beautiful. And what they're finding now with mental health, and some of the research studies that are showing mental health issues in children, even into high school, even into adulthood, I should say, they miss milestones as kids. And so when we miss specific milestones, or we have a stressor in a life, like a big stressor, these reflexes come back to the surface. And the child consistently feels like they're in a fight or flight response. And so their neurological system is always under threat unless we downregulate or turn off that sympathetic nervous system. Your child's either in a powerful state or it's in a primal state. And we want to get your child to be in a powerful state as much as possible and turn off the primal reflexes as much as possible. And the primal state will be the anxiety, the stress, the outbursts, that's all primal. And we want to get your child from moving from that into more of a powerful state. And we could do that using reflexes. And what's beautiful is when we start doing this, your child's brain development will improve and mental health would start diminishing in these children. All right, well, I think that's the end of the presentation. I really appreciate everybody's time. It's been 34 minutes. If you stayed with me this entire time, kudos to you. As not a lot of people, not a lot of parents have the time or give themselves the gift of time to be able to watch masterclass on how to benefit their child. Because our children, they're important to us, right? They're probably the most important thing in our life. And if you're like me, if you're a bit like me, you do whatever it takes to get your child better. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to be your coach. I'm here to be your doctor. I'm here to help you. My team is here to help you. And we just want to get your kids better and to reduce the stress in your life. All right, I look forward to helping and serving your children. Again, if you're interested to come in for a free consult, first you got to fill out the checklist below, and then somebody from my support team will contact you to schedule a free consult with me. And again, in limited spaces, because I only have so much amount of time in my schedule. And right now it's free, but in the future I'm going to be charging $250 for the 30-minute evaluation. All right. Well, thank you guys. I look forward to helping you, serving you and your family, and sempre levante, always forward.